This is West Laurel Hill Cemetery in Bala Cynwyd, just on the outskirts of Philadelphia. And West Laurel Hill Cemetery is an existing cemetery that's been around for hundreds of years. It's a beautiful cemetery. This is a plot that's part of the cemetery that they're now marketing and selling plots for people to be buried in a green cemetery fashion, green burial fashion. What we're doing, what we're proposing here is taking what's defined as green burial by the Green Burial Council, which we refer to on our poster session. Green Burial Council focuses mostly on the burial itself and the funeral activities, and then they also kind of, if you want to reach a certain status of green cemetery, they look at no pesticide application and minimizing impact on the environment. We're taking it to the next step by introducing what we're looking at is the forest to be able to take care of itself over time. So the whole entire area, the whole cemetery will be a meadow in the beginning. The cemetery, as the plots get filled up, they're going to be starting at one end. People don't scatter through the cemetery area. It fills up from one side to the other. So as graves are filled, we're going to actually introduce plants. We're going to start that ecological succession, assist the ecological succession by planting plants, planting different species that would start to create that woodland edge. And as more graves get filled in, we start to march that across the cemetery. And so that ecological succession is actually assisted by the staff as it's growing in to eventually have a full woodland planted on top of a cemetery and being able to hopefully maintain itself. So the perpetual care, instead of being by a lawnmower, will be by nature itself. Instead of having a traditional grave marker, there's going to be a memorial wall adjacent to the cemetery that will kind of identify section by section about what's going to be the people that are buried there. And so people will know the general vicinity of where their loved ones are buried, but they won't actually go right up to that site and see a headstone. There's other ways of doing the memorialization. One of the ways is to do a flat stone, and people know that flat stone is ephemeral. It's ephemeral. It's only going to be there for a few years until the leaf cover covers it up, and then it slowly fades away. Another way to do more permanent marking in a woodland situation would be to have more of a columnar grave marker, maybe 4 inch by 4 inch, and it kind of blends into the verticality of the woodland, and so that can be a different way to mark the graves. But I think the solution that we're working with here is the best solution in that it doesn't litter that area with grave markers, but it does offer the memorialization that the families would be looking for. We've received a lot of good feedback from this. There are people buried in this cemetery already, in this green cemetery, and the families are really happy and excited that their loved ones, who most of the families have a green and ecological will. They're really excited about that their loved one is buried this way, because that's, a lot of them say this is the way that they would have wanted it to be. We actually had a volunteer planting day to help to start this meadow process up. Families came out. I had a man come up to me I've never met before. He said he couldn't tell me how much his heart was filled with joy to be able to see how this is actually going to work. That made my job completely worth it at that point. It was really worthwhile. So we're seeing the positive feedback of it already.
Sure. The focus of the study was to evaluate whether or not there was heavy metal deposition in the McCarthy Park water retention basin in White Marsh Township, Pennsylvania. And from that, it was a summer exploratory study that I've continued into the autumn months. And the goal was just to see if the system was in fact supporting the heavy metal deposition. So we were finding that there were iron and aluminum hotspots throughout the area. Here are some markers that we marked where we were collecting core samples. And from that, we were using Lamont test kits to see, what's the iron level and the aluminum concentrations throughout the soil. So we looked at different depths to see whether or not how much deposition there was. Okay, so we found that there were high concentrations of iron and aluminum deposits in the soil that we found at different levels. It jumped around. Could be dependent upon the rainfall that we were getting and seeing if there was any additional sedimentation occurring throughout the summer months. In the autumn, there was less rainfall, and in fact, the concentrations were less, but we still saw the jumping around in the concentrations. It just wasn't to the same degree. Well, believe it or not, they were actually very smart about what they placed in the basin. They actually used cattails, which have very high iron and aluminum tolerance. So therefore, a lot of the wildlife would not be greatly affected because those cattails are taking up all the excess iron and aluminum.
Does this have implications for future design of retention basins?
I believe that it could, because the way that this is actually settling, there's a liner underneath that's supposedly impermeable. We cannot go down that deep without the possibility of actually breaking the liner. So we'd like to see if not all the concentration of heavy metals is aggregating at the top of the liner.
So this is a poster display that the Franklin Institute has on loan. They have about 30 models, and it demonstrates the simulation of stormwater events. So you either have a fast infiltration or a slow infiltration. And in Philadelphia right now, since it's become a wetter city and the climate is a little bit warmer, there are a lot of issues with basically the stormwater going down into the sewer system, and if it's a precipitation of greater than 1 inch, then it can go into the stream and contaminate the water. So the message is that if you install certain infrastructure, such as trees and green roofs, you can absorb more of the water, and then you don't have to have as much waste go into the streams to contaminate the water. Currently, a lot of places are installing it. I'm not as familiar with the locations, but I know that there are partnerships with Sustainable Choices, for example, and it's an education factor right now. And there's a de-pavement project in the city so that the water doesn't percolate and you have penetrative surfaces absorbing the water.